Welcome, everybody. I'm joined by Raffi, and thank you for that cool intro. I love that little zoom out. And we're here to talk about Neopets, Neopets CCG, which I wanted to start the discussion with. What is a Neopet? What is
So
it?
you never played the game?
Not really. I did Pokemon. I did some
Okay.
Digimon, but what is
It's a super
Neopets?
popular online game. I
Okay.
associate it with like the rise of the internet. And like to me, like peak Neopets was like 1999, 2000, kind of a predecessor to Club Penguin, a bit of a
Okay.
predecessor to RuneScape, although they did overlap for a while.
RuneScape.
So
Okay, you're hitting me with RuneScape. That one
yeah.
hits.
Yeah, it's obviously a different theme, right? This is like you have a pet and you take care of it and you buy items to,
Was it like an online text-based RPG? Because I did a couple of those as well.
in some ways, but I think of it more as a precursor to like an MMORPG, right?
Okay.
Obviously not as fancy, and there wasn't like real time action
Sure.
and things like that. But it was like everyone has an account, you interact with other people. Like you buy items, you sell them in your shop. Other random people on the internet buy your items. It certainly wasn't the first one of those things, but to me as a kid, it was the first one. It was the first like big one of like this is a game that we are all playing together with a
Sure.
million people around the world in real time.
Cool. I'm bought in. So it turned into a card game. So
So
what are we looking
yeah,
at time-wise?
exactly. So the card game I'm looking at, the copyright came out in 2003 and ended, I think, around 2006 or 2007. Produced by Wizards of the Coast. So I'll hold up some more pictures so you can see this is one of the famous characters from Neopets. Lucen was a fairy, also in the first set. So this gets pretty meta because in the Neopets online game, a big part of the game was your pets, but a bigger part was items, right? Like most of what you did was like buying items, selling items, trading items, using the items to like train your
Right.
Neopet to battle or to groom it or to feed it or to teach it how to read and things like that. And so there are cards in the TCG, like this one, that are items. This is like a battle item. It's a weapon you could gift to your Neopet. In the online game, before these trading cards ever existed, there were items called trading cards. So you could buy trading cards to give to your Neopets. And then eventually they created this TCG in real life with Wizards of the Coast. It was like a real life version of that online TCG.
Okay, so it does get pretty meta. And I guess was there also interactiveness from the real card game and the online game?
No. Well, so there was very, very basic, like you get a code card in your pack, just like they knew nowadays with Pokemon. It unlocks a special item. That
Or
was
like
it.
WoW TCG had it with like the scratch loots, which turns out you shouldn't have scratched it.
In this case, those code redemption items could be very valuable in the Neopets economy.
Okay.
In real life, I don't know if they're worth anything anymore. These cards are, which we'll talk about in a moment. But in the game, though, you couldn't play the TCG online. Like at the time, I mean, it sounds so basic in hindsight. Like, yes, that would be a great tie-in to create, but this is like 1999, or I guess the cards were in 2003. Like they didn't have that kind of thing yet. I remember playing online board games in 2008, and like they still couldn't have like programmable rules, right? So the cards were just produced by Wizards of the Coast using the art from the Neopets game, and I think the art was like very iconic to a lot of people, right? It's like if you see this, so this is a card of a Snowagger, one of the main villains. You have to like get an item from the Snowagger while he was sleeping. So I think the cartoon style art is very evocative of the game and awesome. The game itself, I learned how to play recently with my son. I found it super fun, like very, very simple, right? Somewhere between Young Jedi and Magic the Gathering on like a level of complexity. It's fun. But what I find interesting about the game from a collectability standpoint is I think so many people rushed into buying it during the COVID stuff without really understanding it. Because you probably remember with the Pokemon craze, like people are like, WotC, like everything WotC we're going to buy, like Harry Potter went up, right? Like all the stuff people didn't care about before. And the same thing happened to Neopets. The evidence I have is that prices of sealed product, like the boxes and packs, are extremely high relative to the prices of the actual singles. That's always true, but even relative to the prices of complete sets by a factor that's way, way bigger than any other game, right? So think about the Star Wars CCG. Like there's some sets where buying a sealed booster box is like twice as expensive as buying a complete set. You're like, what's up with that? Like I could just get 2 complete sets.
I feel like that's like most or even more, right?
Exactly. So a lot of games are like that, and it's because the sealed product itself might want to keep it sealed and all kinds of reasons. But in Neopets, that factor is like 10 or 20x, right? It's just insanely high. And to me, it's evidence of people like, I like Wizards of the Coast, so I'll buy anything Wizards of the Coast. I know that sealed product always goes up in price, so I'll buy sealed product. So people who have never played Neopets in their life, don't know anything about the cards, don't care about the cards, are buying boxes. And now boxes are like almost impossible to find except for the first couple of sets. But the cards themselves are hard to find, but attainable.
Does it follow, let's call it the golden rule? And I feel like I should develop this more. The golden rule of out-of-print CCG games where later sets are more expensive and rare due to short print runs?
Exactly, with some exceptions. So in Neopets, the most valuable sets are sets number 8 and 5 out of 10. There were 10 sets. So
Okay.
set 8, the Darkest Fairy, and set 5, Hannah the Ice Caves, they had secret rares. So I'll show a couple of secret rares. This is a secret rare from the Darkest Fairy. It's a second version of Fiora the Fairy Queen. So if you remember, for anyone in the audience who played Neopets, she was like the guardian of the hidden tower. You could buy expensive items. And then this is a secret rare from Hannah and the Ice Caves. It's one of the Neopets, a Shoiru, with a jelly paintbrush. So painted jelly colored.
I don't want to say it kind of looks like Mew, but it has Mew vibes, right? Like a little bit from Pokemon.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So those two sets of secret rares are the most valuable, but there were sets 9 and 10. Sets 9 and 10 are also pretty valuable. Everything is relatively hard to find. Like we had talked before about My Little Pony, how just like I trawl eBay and there's so few of these things that actually come up that are not from like the first couple of sets. So Neopets is similar. I mean, it's taken me, I don't even know how long, like a year or more to complete the collection that I've been going after, which I'll explain sometime in another video. Very, very hard to find these things coming up, and the prices fluctuate wildly, right? So I'll give an example of like a card I really like. The fairies were important characters in Neopets. So this is the Mary the Water Fairy. This card on eBay is like buy it now for $100. And if you look at the longer price history, you can see some people have bought it for $100. But also occasionally someone will sell it, like they don't know what this is, right? And they're like, oh, it's a cool Neopets card, $20, right? And so I bought like versions of this for $100. I bought versions of this for $20 and like everything in between. There's this really old website called stop2shop.com. Have you ever been there?
I've never been there.
It is the go-to source for Neopets TCG singles. They also sell like Pokemon and Magic and stuff, but it's a really janky, like old website. And
it's like a GeoCities thing, kind of.
It looks like that. Yeah. The way you have to pay is you have to generate an invoice in PayPal by typing in like the code 1234567, and they mail you a PayPal invoice. It's a nightmare. But I've ordered from them multiple times because they actually have most, not all, of the singles from Neopets, and the prices are like a fraction of eBay. I think they're like the real price. Like that's what a store would be selling them for. But if only like 5 people have a random uncommon card on eBay, they'll start selling it for like $10.
So 10 sets. Can you talk like, was there a kind of evolution of the game? You know, did like printing quality get better? I mean, it's interesting. WotC had all these, like I would love to go through the graveyard, maybe for a video sometime, just like the graveyard of canceled WotC games, because there's some very prominent ones, right? You got the Harry Potter one.
This was super prominent. I'm surprised you didn't play Neopets, because I feel like everyone our age like played Neopets back in the day.
Yeah,
I guess I could put some more while you're talking just in the meantime, like for nostalgia purposes, people remember like the paintbrushes. This is the Lost Desert paintbrush, which I also love. And then we got
what's the size of the collecting community? Because I think, you know, is it pretty robust, or is it, you know, small and it's just due to like scarcity of product that, you know, prices are high, or is it like there's a pretty robust international community? No,
I think it's very, very few people. I'm saying this is like My Little Pony pre the China influx. It's like it's pretty niche. This is from the set The Darkest Fairy. This card is called The Darkest Fairy. This is probably the most expensive English Neopets card. That's not a sketch card, which I will talk about in a moment. And this is a pet version. If anyone played Neopets, remember the pets. They're pets that your pets could have. And then later on, they made pets, which were pets that your pets could have.
I guess I kind of get it. Like my cat has a little stuffed animal that she sometimes carries.
And then if your stuffed animal had a little bug living on it, that would be a pet.
I mean, I think we mentioned this before in My Little Ponies video, but I just appreciate games that also are not so doom and gloom, and like there's not just using these like dark color palettes. It's like, no, this is fun and colorful. It just reminds me there's more colors than like green, blue, and black.
Yeah. And these colors are beautiful. So in terms of printing, what's interesting, the very first set, the base set, it's called, had a hollow printing that was very unique. So it's kind of hard to tell in the but you see those bubbles, kind of like the Cosmos holofoil pattern from Pokemon, except those bubbles are all over the card and they're tiny, and then there's some bigger ones over here. So the whole card is just like incredibly sparkly. And every hollow, there were 30 of them in the base set, were like that. And then the later sets, they just switched to a more conventional hollow pattern.
So going back to kind of price a little bit. So it's a small collecting community, but it's just hard to find. Because does it feel like maybe just positing a theory here, in the world of what got tossed in the 2000s, like I feel like I never tossed my Star Wars cards because it's Star Wars. I'm like, oh, these are like, I know this. Does Neopets feel like this might have gotten, you know, thrown away more because it's like this is it more in the realm of like garbage than it is like, oh, I'll keep my Star Wars stuff because you know.
I think it's more. My hunch is that people would hold on to it, right? Because Neopets is so popular, and it's a kind of thing where it just hasn't had the resurgence yet, and maybe never will. Right, like Star Wars had a resurgence when Disney bought the IP and they started making new movies. Right, that's a big part of it. Neopets, like you can actually still play the website. It was acquired by some other thing, and half the website kind of doesn't work anymore. But like I logged into my old account recently, like, it still works to some extent, but it hasn't been like nobody's done like the Neopets reboot or the Neopets remake or like the Netflix series of Neopets. I'm still holding out hope that they will one day, because it's just like a gold mine for IP. Like, so many people our age played it, but it's also possible it'll never happen. Like, these cards will end up being forgotten.
It's fascinating because so there was never a TV show, there was never a comic book, there was just kind of like an online game that had like, art that was part of the online game.
Yep, and then in real life, the main collectible things were like these cards, but also like stuffed animals, plushies. I have one here. This is the pet that I had on Neopets was a fairy Kugra. This is a Kugra painted with a fairy paintbrush. So for nostalgia, I bought this one from eBay, but they create like tons and tons of these. Do you remember the store Limited 2?
Yes.
Like for like preteen girls, like for clothing. So they sold a lot of Neopet stuff at Limited 2.
It's fascinating, but there was never like a comic book or like a TV show or like something to capitalize on this, like Pokemon clones. Like, you remember, like there was like that 2005 period where it's like every little cute monster show, like Pokemon, Digimon. Like there's a whole bunch of these other shows that have like are less prominent than that. It's curious it wasn't like a Neopets thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my sense of from the outside is like their IP was so good. Like, these characters are like so fun. The game was amazing and super addictive, but like as a business, not really clear if they knew what they were doing, right? Like, they decide like, let's have a partnership with Limited 2. Like, let's create this one-off TCG, but then like not support it anymore. Let's, they didn't create a movie, although it was in talks for a long time. So I think that must be it.
I mean, I think this kind of goes back to like why I like some of these out of print games, is because it was more of an experimental time. Like right now, the collecting community amongst, let's say, Magic and Pokemon, it is very like they broke the formula, right? They figured it out. So they figured out the rarity. You need to include like, sports cards are notorious for this. Like, it's just getting people to buy product and break it. And there wasn't as much like experimentation with like fun stuff. And that's what this is.
Yeah, this is super fun. And that's what brings me to the sketch cards. Very topical right now because they were serialized cards. So Magic the Gathering is now doing serialized cards. They've been doing it for a few sets and everyone knows about it now with the One Ring card. But maybe this is the first time that WotC ever did serialized things. So in that 8th set, the Darkest Fairy, that's the set that this card is from, there were 5 secret rares. I think I showed a couple of them. Like, this was one of the secret rares. But then there was a higher rarity than secret rare, which was these sketch cards that were serialized. There were only a few hundred of each. I forget the exact number, 12 total. And each one was a hand-drawn sketch of a Neopet. And so for any given one, there could be, like for each serialized copy, there's a different one that someone actually drew. So you truly have the only copy of that specific sketch, and the card has like an embossed number on it.
Oh, interesting. Was there a certain number of sketch cards? Like, this Neopet had 100, but each of the 100 is going to be slightly different because an artist physically sketched
Exactly. And then there's 8 or 12 or something different Neopets. The reason I don't know that much about it is because they're just like I'm not even going off. Each one is $1,000 or something, and then if theoretically you want to get one of each, that would be 12 of them. So very, very, very difficult to find. The rarity was one in every few boxes. Nobody knows exactly how many, but something like 3 to 4 boxes, you'd get a sketch card. And boxes from that set are literally impossible. In fact, there's only ever been one that I've seen on eBay in like a year. But the reason I didn't go for them, and the reason this goes back to my hypothesis about people who don't know about this game who are still collecting it, is those are the cards that people went for first, right? So typical mindset that I'm sure you and I have of like, we're getting into a game, like let's try to find the hardest to find stuff, the rarest stuff. So again, I think it's people who don't necessarily care about Neopets or not as much, but they're like, let's get the sealed product and let's get the hardest to find things, which are the sketch cards. And so even though the sketch cards are special, they're serialized, one of a kind art, just the price of them in proportion to the other secret rares in the set is just totally out of whack to me, right? Like 10x, it just doesn't make sense based on actual rarities.
So do you have any to show off? I'm curious. Do you own any sketch rares?
No. Couldn't care less about them. They look ugly to me. It's like literally like someone sketched a Neopet. Like, why do I want a sketch of it? Not like, a nice looking shiny one.
It's like just sort of a hand-drawn thing. I mean, it's sort of fascinating. Like, I mean, it's a good idea. And I could see like the inner collector in me is appealing to it. But I wonder, after this initial COVID rush in 2020 for all WotC things, I know Harry Potter crashed pretty hard, like very hard. And has Neopets kind of crashed as well price-wise, or is it sort of staying stable just due to the small size of the community? Whereas I think Harry Potter just comparatively had a much bigger community because it's just, there's always going to be some people that want Harry Potter stuff, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't fully know the answer because I wasn't collecting this during the height of COVID. I started more recently, but my sense is from sealed products and then these sketch cards, like they've stayed stable just because there are so few of them.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I would love to sort of do a chart sometimes if I had some more time of like what games, peaked in July 2020 and what ones didn't. Like, I would say Star Wars CCG has sort of been like it peaked and then it kind of has been plateauing. And something like Lord of the Rings TCG is like just going wild, right? Because Lord of the Rings is sexy right now. And who knows if that will drop back down. I don't think so because it's like just people like owning, pictures of their favorite things. But Neopets, I don't know enough. I'm kind of intrigued though. So do you have anything else to share, Ravi?
No, last thing to share is, I guess my collection is like 3 cards away from being complete. They're hopefully in the mail right now coming to me. So
That's
on
super
my
exciting.
channel, Pokenomics with Jake, hopefully I'll make a video of like the complete collection if anyone's interested. I'm now selling a bunch of my extras because along this collecting journey, I've created a bunch of additional complete sets. So that might be towards the end of my Neopets TCG journey, but we'll see. Because sometimes, as I'm sure you know, with some of these cards, I just like them so much, I want multiple copies, and I just like anytime I see them for a good price, like I'll just buy more of them.
No, I understand completely. You're talking to a guy who just bought a Young Jedi collection, and it's like it's almost like when you get the collection, you're like, I didn't really want to own it all. It was the journey to get it all that was enjoyable for me, the exploration, the conversations. I mean, that's become tedious sometimes, but I understand. So what do you think you're going to do after Neopets?
We'll see. We'll see what comes next. But like I said, like I there's some cards I like so much, the Neopets, but also Young Jedi Reflection set, where I think I'm almost done with my 3rd complete set of Reflections. Because anytime I see a good price Reflections card, like I gotta buy it.
Well, this was a lot of fun chatting. I'd love to hear people's thoughts and comments, like, subscribe, all that stuff if you care.
Yeah.
But we'd love to hear your experience with Neopets. I never did anything with it, so I might go check out the website or read the Wikipedia here to do a bit of my homework.
It's a rabbit hole. We can end with an outro. I'll zoom into the Snowwagger.
Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you around.